Hi, welcome to Reliably Republican. I am Casey Crosby, your host, and today I am thrilled to have my good friend and the chairman of the state West Virginia GOP with me, Matt Herridge. Matt, I'm going to let you start here and tell our audience just a little bit about yourself.
Well, first, Casey, thank you so much for the invitation. This is awesome. Yes, and number one, I just will say thank you for your leadership and what you're doing for the party. It's really appreciated. My story has certainly been quite a whirlwind over the past year and a half. I was elected chairman of the West Virginia GOP in January 2024, and then got to serve in one of the greatest elections ever, 2024. And then in January of this year, the governor asked me to jump into the role of Secretary of Commerce. So I'm kind of wearing two hats at the moment. I'm also a small business person in West Virginia, but had quite a varied history. But I love what I'm doing now. It's been a great experience.
Well, I know that amazing things have been going on in West Virginia, and I like to give you and Oklahoma a hard time because I know you guys go a little bit back and forth. You mentioned the 2024 election, and so maybe we should settle this here. Which state went stronger for President Trump?
Casey, I'm so glad you asked this question. It is not even a competition. Now, let me make my case here. There were two states that had over 70% of the vote for Donald Trump. Okay. And I believe that was Oklahoma and that was us. And then or maybe that was Wyoming, but one or the other. And then there were two states that had every single county, and that was West Virginia and Oklahoma, Wyoming, one or the other. But there was only one state that did both of those, and that was West Virginia. Every single county. We had over 70% of the vote for Donald Trump. I mean, Casey, I'll brag just a minute. We hold 91 out of 100 seats in the House as the Republican Party, and then we have 32 out of 34 in the Senate. We have every Board of Public Works seat from the governor on down, and we have every federal seat, all senators, all congressmen and women. I mean, to me, it's not even an argument. We are the Republican state in the country.
Well, it's funny because I know being in the same region together, we always have some friendly competition between the states. Obviously, we're all in the South, and, the South pulled through for President Trump during 2024. But I know your state, we're neighbors, my home state of Kentucky. And in fact, we like to say West by God, Virginia. And as you know, I married a fine young man from West Virginia many years ago. So I'm awfully fond of your state, but I also remember our states not too long ago were very blue. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the transition and how quickly you saw the shift from a blue to red state, and maybe just some of the dynamics around that shift and how quickly it happened?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're exactly right about Kentucky being, a sister state with us. I mean, absolutely. I always joke, I say, if God forbid things really ever went wrong in this country, that some of the states that are going to protect the rest of the people are going to be Kentucky and West Virginia.
Amen.
We know how to defend. But it's been quite a story in West Virginia. In 2014 is when we became the majority party in the House. And until then, it had been a reliably Democratic state for 100 years. And so where we are right now has been a lot of factors have gone into this, probably similar to Kentucky, but we have never given up in this state. I truly believe that the values of West Virginians, whether they were a Democrat or whether they were a Republican in the past, are very, very similar. And they share these values of faith, and they share these values of family and of freedom. And in fact, my grandparents, one of them was a Republican, my grandmother was a Democrat. They battled for many years, but my grandmother's gift on their 60th wedding anniversary was to change registration to Republican for my grandfather. But they shared the same values. And I think what's happened is as the Democrat Party has moved away from those values, people say they just don't fit me anymore. And we're open arms. We are the big tent that open arms or show open arms to them with those values. And it's been great. I mean, we have now, I think it's 49 out of 55 counties plurality Republican.
Wow.
6 years ago, that was flipped on its head.
Only 6 years? That's
Yes.
amazing.
When Joe Manchin was elected, it was in the 40s plurality for for Democrat counties, and now we've switched that. It's quite a story.
You mentioned something, and we hear it in Kentucky all the time. We had a lot of very moderate Democrats. We love the mountains. We love, we love our people. We value a lot of the same values that you all value in West Virginia: family, freedom. We work hard, and that's one thing that we hear from a lot of people who have switched and come our way is, the party just really left them, and they had nowhere to go, and they found that the Republicans were more welcoming and really just embraced them and their beliefs a little better. And so that's why we've seen a lot of the same shifts. And of course, Donald Trump has helped that too.
Oh my! I mean, Donald Trump has really been such a big factor for the state of West Virginia. As we just bragged about, the state loves Donald Trump. And in fact, at the convention, it was one of the best experiences of my life to get to represent West Virginia with our contingent at very front row at that convention, and just having the president pick us to be up front like that. I think he recognizes that we are his biggest fans. But it's really been interesting. The Democratic Party seems like what they've done is, instead of finding some base to build on, their whole party is based on what's the opposite of whatever Donald Trump believes. And that clearly has got them down the wrong path. That's been interesting to watch.
Yeah, I know. I see all these polls, and particularly like right now with the immigration and an 80-20 issue where Americans believe 80% the border should be shut down. That there needs to be a process for people to come into our country. And I'm like, the Democrats just seem so determined to double down on stupid. It's just amazing to me. And you've probably seen some of the same things. I know I would be out of a job as a co-chair if I was doing what the vice chair of the Democrat Party was doing right now, trying to take on elected officials in his own party and raise money to take them out. It's amazing. But I keep saying, let them go. Let them all talk. Let them keep picking these issues to double down on. It's just truly amazing to me how really out of touch. And, and I traveled the country. I know you traveled quite a bit too. And I'm always amazed how I'll be places and it's almost like they're just so out of touch with states like West Virginia and Kentucky and what we value and what's important to us. But again, I just probably like you, like, keep talking, keep going.
I'm with you. I mean, I think I was listening today that AOC might be rising to the top of the potential presidential nominees.
Oh, please. That's
so I'm like, please let that happen. I want to beg.
I know.
But yeah, those, I like the fact that our states their identities haven't changed, right?
Right.
Even though the Democrat-Republican mix has changed, who we are and that base nature of what we value, and that is, just this American ideal, I think it's still there. And I see it every day when I get to talk with folks across our state. And I'm so proud of these folks, because what I think we may not be the most educated state sometimes. Sometimes we even have issues, of course, that we know we're working on: health, actually income. But what we have, I think, is a wealth of common sense. And when stuff really gets bad, that common sense is what helps people get through. I've been so impressed with our state, watching what they've done over the past few weeks with our flooding, and but we've all stepped up and tried to help each other. And it's been pretty incredible to watch.
You mentioned we've had some of the same issues in the state of Kentucky with the torrential rain we've gotten and the flooding. And, I know that we have seen a huge difference in response from previous sort of disasters that we've had in the state. The Trump administration has really been amazing, where they've come in immediately and have done all the necessary things to, give our citizens some comfort. And it's just it's truly amazing what different leadership at the top can do, particularly when you deal with issues like our states have been dealing with these disasters. And it's just devastating for these communities when it happens. So I don't know about you all, but we sort of sense like finally someone cares.
Right. Yeah. And we know that. And the president stepped up and helped us with some FEMA, investment, and that's appreciated. But I'll tell you, it is so encouraging to see where this country is going, and what a celebration I've been able to have with other West Virginians since the election. It's been so fun to travel the state and talk to different groups who are those grassroots folks who have worked hard, who are making phone calls, who are traveling to Pennsylvania to help with the vote there. And, West Virginians stepped out and said, how can we help share why we want Donald Trump as the next president? And it was a team effort, but it sure worked well.
Well, and you bring up a great point, because I don't think we talk about that enough. I know we did the same thing in Kentucky and states like West Virginia, where, there was no doubt President Trump was going to win our states and win them bigly. But, where we really, as state parties, came together and figured out, how can we help in the swing states? What can we do? And, with you all, the proximity to Pennsylvania and being able to send volunteers across state lines to go in and walk. I know that your party also did postcards and sent postcards into swing states. We participated in the Trump 47, getting phone calls and getting voters out in the swing states. So sometimes I think we don't highlight enough how our solid red states even step up and help in other areas of the country, because we've seen how good it can be. We've seen the change. And that's, I know you probably talk to a lot of people too on the Republican National Committee where they're in blue states, and sometimes they just feel like, what can we do? It seems like an uphill battle. And, I always tell them, West Virginia and Kentucky, we were there not too long ago. And, it's pretty amazing. And I want to ask you, because from what I've seen is when your team, meaning like your RNC members, your elected officials, your central committee, your executive committee, however you operate in the state, when you all can get together and get on the same page, usually that's when you start to see good things happen in a state. So can you talk a little bit about the relationship that I know you and your committee members have a very strong, good working relationship, but also how that sort of spills over, and your message as a state party is something that everybody shares and carries, so that we can continue winning in red states like yours?
Yeah. And I'm glad you asked that question. I wrote an op-ed a few months ago, and again, it's kind of a bragging thing, but I said why West Virginia is the blueprint for the Republican Party of the future. And I went into a lot of things, but I really believe, when it comes down to it, that if you have a core set of values that drive you, and you have a belief in something outside of you, a belief that there's a truth that sits outside of us, that we don't each live our own truth, which you hear a lot of, and my truth is different than your truth. No, there's one truth. And I think that message resonates with so many people. I'll also say this, one of the things I got to watch the Super Bowl, and we have a secret weapon in West Virginia, and that is the song Country Roads. So I'm watching the Super Bowl, and some ad, I think it was a mortgage company, starts playing Country Roads and going through all these great scenes, and they zoom back in to the entire audience at the Super Bowl, and everybody is on their feet singing in unison Country Roads. It's a song that's known across the world. And I thought about that, and I thought, when it comes down to it, those core values of home, other people, putting others before yourself, those are values that all Americans hold. And I think West Virginia is an example of that. And we just continue to talk about it and welcome anyone who wants to share that values. We're seeing people start to move back to the state, which is awesome. I'm seeing, within the commerce level now, I'm seeing all kinds of investment coming our way because of our energy reserves, not unlike Kentucky. And the future looks bright, I think. And I'm just glad to share that message with anybody I can.
Well, I can't even think of a better way to end this podcast than you just giving that fantastic ad for your state of West Virginia. You know, certainly we love you all as your neighbors, and we are so grateful for your leadership and everything you do. And I'll just ask you real quick. I see a picture behind you of two men with their thumbs up. I assume it's probably, but I assume that's you and President Trump. And you both look fantastic. And we thank you for everything that you've done to help get him elected and everything you're doing to keep all those supermajorities up in the state of West Virginia and bringing Republicans together. So thank you for everything, and God bless you.
Thank you, Casey. I appreciate you.
It was great having Matt Herridge, the chairman of West Virginia GOP, with me today. He's also the Commerce Secretary for the state of West Virginia, and we spent a lot of time talking about the great successes they've had in West Virginia, turning it from a blue state to a red state in just a few years, and how they just so convincingly won their state for President Trump, and the opportunities they had to go in and help in swing states. And it was just a delightful conversation. I hope you all enjoy the time that I got to spend with Matt today.